Welcome to Stacy Washington Now here on Salem News Channel. I'm very excited to share with you who's joining me on the show today. We have Michael Waller. He's the author of Big Intel. We're going to discuss how the CIA and FBI went from Cold War heroes to deep state villains. We're also going to be joined by Tim Graham. He's MRC's executive editor of Newsbusters, and we're going to be chatting about Biden's avoidances of media scrutiny, which we saw one of the reasons why he avoids that yesterday, live in real time. So let's jump into the presidency. So what we have going on now is that there was a huge media firestorm and it's still ongoing, still trending on Twitter. You have a complete disconnect between what people actually saw yesterday. Half of Americans saw the special counsel come out after investigating President Biden and looking at 40 years of his life in politics and his storage of classified documents, which for those who are on active duty in the military, improper storage of classified information, whether it's electronic or on paper, can actually result in dismissal from the service dishonorably and jail time at Fort Leavenworth. So just want to place a little bit of a plumb line for how carefully certain people are required to keep classified information in comparison to those who are elected members of the elite and somehow above us, over us, not just our overlords, but people who are immune to prosecution. So the other half of the country saw a absolutely willful disregard for the proper storage of classified documents, but the refusal to prosecute because of what was characterized as mental acuity. So don't take it from me. I thought it was fascinating that we had Sky News Australia reporting in real time on what was going on here in our country. They are very interested. Take a look as they report on special counsel's scathing report on President Biden's memory.
Well, look, the fact he won't face charges is in and of itself an issue with his mental health. Essentially, what this investigation has found is that Joe Biden did willfully retain documents. This report has a few photos that we can show you now of where these were retained. But the issue with going forward is that they would have an issue prosecuting him in court, theoretically, and upholding that evidence because his memory is so bad. So this is an absolutely damning report. This is not from a political foe. This is an independent look into this case, this issue with classified documents that we know Donald Trump has had as well. But this has said that the main issue in all this is Joe Biden's memory. So we'll read you an excerpt of what this report has said. In part, it's a very lengthy report, but it said Mr. Biden's memory also appeared to have significant limitations both at the time he spoke to Swanitzer in 2017 as evidenced by their recorded conversations and today as evidenced by his recorded interview with our office. Mr. Biden's recorded conversations with Swanitzer from 2017 are often painfully slow, with Mr. Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended, quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began, quote, in 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember even within several years when his son Beau died.
So this is actually under extended period of time where President Biden is being interviewed by these attorneys and prosecutors and investigators. And so normally we would hear anecdotes, leaks from these kinds of sessions by people on the left talking about how rude President Trump was. I was just reading some of those from one of the depositions from one of the many court cases that President Trump is laboring under to respond to. They were talking about being at Mar-a-Lago and interviewing him. And when they were there interviewing about his classified documents case, they were there for an extended period of time. And he ended up getting upset that the lawyers, his attorney, had agreed to feed everyone lunch. And he said, I wonder if you should be allowed to eat lunch when you're here to prosecute me for improper. Actually, it wasn't the document storage case. Let me correct that. That was the case where he is alleged to have paid someone to keep them from talking about a relationship that they had. And so that's another case that's going on. There's so many cases we can barely keep track, but specifically that case, the attorney and the woman was there who was accusing him. He has his attorneys, and there's a group of people, almost a dozen people in the room, and they've been going all morning, and it's 1:00. And she said she was hungry and they were going to leave. And instead of leaving, the attorneys had already prearranged to have box lunches brought in because Mar-a-Lago is a resort. And so, they can make sandwiches in the kitchen and bring them in. And so that was the prearranged plan. President Trump wasn't aware of it and he cracked wise about it. And so that information was leaked out by her attorneys to media organizations, and they were making fun of him for not wanting to feed them. Now, is that a big deal? No. Can he stand the scrutiny and the mockery? Yes. But the point is the difference in treatment. They treat President Trump like he's already convicted and they just can't wait to get him in jail. And they treat President Biden like he's our favorite uncle or granddad. Neither of these men are deserving of either of those treatments. President Biden should be treated like the man he is, a 50-year political operator with power, wealth, connections, and authority, who is being investigated. Memory lapses or not, he did the crime. He should be indicted for it, as long as you're indicting people for improper storage of documents. And there's another salient point that has to be made. When we're talking about classified document storage, there's only one person in that chain, because the chain starts at the top with the President of the United States and it goes all the way down to bottle washers and cooks and the US Coast Guard, right? Everyone in between those two individuals, those two positions, has rules, laws, and authority that are assigned to them based on their security clearance and what the law says about what they can do with classified documents. So suffice it to say, if you don't have a top secret Yankee white security clearance, which is what the vice president has, you probably have never seen that level of classified documents. But President Biden had when he was vice president. But even at that level, even at that highest security clearance, that's only one that's higher than that, and that's the president of the United States. He did not have the authority to remove classified documents and decamp them to other places and leave them for storage without notifying the person who's in charge of the records. So let me tell you what matters here. The president of the United States is the only individual who is elected who has the ability to declassify documents on their own. He has that authority. He was also at Mar-a-Lago, which is guarded by the Secret Service, so the documents were secure. So the idea that we're prosecuting him for this is just another witch hunt. Understand that. Make sure you keep that in your back pocket when you're talking to friends or someone's trying to confront you about how Trump's guilty and Biden was exonerated. That's a whole lot of poppycock. You don't have to stand for it, whether they're drinking their Bud Light or their other woke drink, or they're trying to peddle some nonsense about gender affirming care. Every bit of the facts that we need are at our disposal. And one of the reasons why I'm here is to give you those facts so that you can share them around so that we can make sure the truth goes out. Because one thing we can't do is stand by idly, kind of judgmentally, allowing people to tell lies. We have to refute those lies with the truth. We'll be back with more after this.